I want to welcome you all here. It's great to see such a wonderful crowd. It's the biggest crowd we've had here in years. And great to see you all here on this rainy day and with the traffic that we all encountered coming from 84 East. I'm John Garagogian. I'm the state auditor. I'll be the MC today. And we first want to start with the national anthem of the United States. And Bobby's not going to, Nareem Grosjean is going to sing it for us. We'll start, help us all sing. Come up here.
April 24th represents a sacred day in the life of our nation. On this day in Armenia, as well as in the diaspora, every Armenian is filled with spiritual and national awareness and are reminded of the sacrifices they make to safeguard their Christian faith. Moreover, this day gives birth to a firm and unwavering vision which encompasses the entire creed of over 1.5 million victims. 99 years have passed since the first genocide perpetuated by the Ottoman Turks. In this relatively short period in history, the children of an entire generation of victims have survived. They survived, we survived, by believing firmly in the Spirit of Christ's resurrection, and furthermore, making the sacred mystery of the resurrection part of our very essence. In one of his reflections devoted to the calamity of the Armenian Genocide, Archbishop Yevishe of blessed memory made the following statement: "Several attempts have been made to annihilate us physically. However, we have always had an inner spiritual strength, which is difficult to explain, that has united our language, our religion, our national characteristics, and civic struggles, thus rendering our people vigorous and strong and safeguarding our survival. For centuries, our people have expected neither pity nor admiration, but rather the right to live freely and peacefully, protected by God's holy and precious cross. Naturally, we cannot relinquish our rights from the lands paid for by the bloodshed of our forefathers, an undeniable and infinite debt which we have inherited. Dear faithful, we live in a world where people are so oppressed that they are unable to express their sense of justice. The vivid proof of that is the constant postponement of the Armenian Genocide recognition. However, this historically undeniable fact keeps the children of our nation always alert and vigilant. The memory of the victims of this calamity will not allow our consciences to rest until we appropriate our rightful claims. Just like the Israelites who roamed in the Sinai desert and turned the 10 Commandments into their spiritual guide towards the Promised Land, Armenians living outside the motherland will roam in our own Sinai deserts and will create a brighter future, inspired by the visions reflected from Holy Echmiadzin. We pledge to keep the memory of the victims alive deep in our hearts, along with the numerous sacrifices and hardships endured by our people during the Soviet era. When we commemorate the memory of the victims of the genocide, it is important to make our motherland and Holy Echmiadzin a part of our life. For motherland and faith are two of our most precious values that are the purpose and mission of our life from this point forward. Today is another occasion when the Armenian Church beseeches us, without any exception, to strengthen within ourselves the sense of leading a life in the Christian faith laden with spiritual and moral values, to ensure our nation's immortality. It is crucial to devote ourselves and preserve our spiritual and moral values. While reflecting on the sacrifices suffered by the victims of the genocide, Patriarch Yevishe of blessed memory made the following statement: "The 24th of April is a tragedy which we have inherited from our past. The noblest duty of our generation is to always keep its memory alive. If we succeed to preserve the ideals for which our ancestors perished and unite, hand in hand in brotherly love, then our forefathers will rest in peace and would have accomplished our duty. Only then, he continues, can we claim that April 24th, though a day of mourning, is also a day of resurrection. We were persecuted and murdered, but we were never lost. Our forefathers who perished paved the way to our immortality. Christos Arial Imerelos.
We have a couple of special guests that have come to join us today, and I'd like them to say a few words. First, we're happy to have our state treasurer, Denise Napier, here. Denise is somebody I work with even more closely in my new job as state auditor, and our offices work very well together. As a matter of fact, I have my auditors right in her office. So thank you, Denise.
Good morning. I am so very pleased to join you at the commemoration of the Armenian Genocide. I offer my congratulations to State Representative Christopher Wright and everyone involved in making this day truly a day of remembrance. You know, there is a well-settled truism that those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And that is why this day is so important. By holding this ceremony, we recognize and commemorate the historic tragedy and the resilience of the Armenian people. Thank you, and may you have a blessed day.
And bringing greetings on behalf of Governor Malloy, his chief of staff, who's been with us for as long as I've been coming to this event, some 20-something years, Margo Jacob.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you once again. As John has indicated, I think I've been here as long as this ceremony has been going on in this building. And it's a pleasure once again to be here as myself, but also to bring greetings from Governor Malloy, who unfortunately could not be here today. As you see in your programs, though, the governor has designated today, April 24th, as a day of remembrance of the 99th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide. This is particularly a poignant day for me this year, as I met also the last Connecticut survivor of the genocide. And so as I look around the room and as I was talking to people, I see, a lot of folks my age, a little older, but I see a lot of young people. And for those of us who had family members who were impacted one way or the other by the genocide, I think it's important for us to remember, to be vocal, to continue to advocate on behalf of our community, on behalf of our faith, and to hopefully move Congress to one day designating this as an official tragedy. My grandfather sent over here by his family at age 14, right when the genocide was beginning, and entered this country with very little in his pocket and very few family members to greet him. His mother, father, and sister were all massacred as part of that. And as I continue to remember him, and as my dad, who passed away last year, towards his last few days, we actually spent a lot of time talking about my grandfather, the Armenian heritage, and what it meant to us. And so I come here with a renewed spirit, and I would ask all of you who have family members who were part of that horrible tragedy to remember, to continue to be vocal, to continue to move the right agenda forward. And I will make sure that the governor, should be the governor again next year, is here next year to bring greetings on the 100th anniversary. Thank you so much.
As Mark alluded to, here in Connecticut, we only have one survivor that we know of. And for a recognition, I'd like to call upon Attorney Greg Marsikian and Judge Evelyn Muchin-Daly.
The Armenian Genocide, which officially began in 1915, and has continued in various forms to this day, remains an open wound on the Armenian psyche, and especially on our honored survivors. 99 years after the start of the Armenian Holocaust, we come together again with a simple prayer. A prayer that Armenians and other minorities in Turkey will be given equal rights and can speak their own language and worship according to their own faith. Prayer Armenians and other minorities will receive restitution for all the property stolen, and that our churches will be restored to the rightful owners. Prayer that the evil infecting the modern Republic of Turkey will disappear, and the majority of Turks will come to us offering genuine remorse and seeking forgiveness from us, so we can in turn finally be rid of the evil in our hearts as we apologize in kind. Finally, I pray the majority of Turks will join us, or at least permit us to conduct funerals for all those who perish. It has been my privilege to recognize Armenian genocide survivors over the past several years. With much sadness, I note that Harry George, the last known Connecticut genocide survivor born prior to 1915, passed away last year. However, I'm very pleased to report that Harutunian from Kharpert, who we believe to be the last living Armenian genocide survivor residing in Connecticut, despite some recent health challenges, is here for us to honor. And I call upon the Honorable Evelyn M. Daly.
In the words of Diane Derhofanasyan, wherever a tree grows, there grows hope. Whoever plants believes in tomorrow. She beautifully captures our sentiment as a committee in having a tree planted in Armenia in honor of our survivor, Zavin Der Abrahamyan. This I'd like to present.
The day is fast approaching when when the last genocide survivors will no longer be with us. However, there will always be descendants of genocide survivors. On April 24th, 1915, the Ottoman Turkish government arrested approximately 250 Armenian community leaders in Istanbul, who were subsequently moved outside towards Ayas. Some were killed in transit, others thereafter. Among those seized on April 24th, 1915, was the physician, agronomist, and author, Nazareth Dagavarian. Dr. Dagavarian was a founder of the AGPU and was elected as a member of the Ottoman Parliament and the Armenian National Central Committee. He was survived by his wife Arsine and his children Anahi, Nenu, Astrid, and Bursa. We are honored that Dr. Dagavarian's daughter-in-law, Helen Dagavarian, grandchildren Diana Kopit and Dikran Dagavarian, and several great-grandchildren from the Dagavarian family are with us today. I now call upon them, the Dagavarian family, to light 2 candles, one in memory of the victims and one in memory of the survivors of the Armenian Genocide. I'd ask everyone to please rise for a moment as we offer a moment of silence for all the victims of the Armenian Genocide. Thank you. Thank you. Great. Before I introduce our host, I want to take a few minutes to say a few words. Just thank the committee for giving me the honor of being the MC this year. Something that's only been held by a few people as far as I can remember. And while I'm here, brought to mind, I have to mention Anna Sayan, who was the who ran this ceremony for many, many years. And she was the one that basically took me under her wing even before I was elected to the legislature in 1994. And when Ann became infirm, Brian Flaherty and I helped make sure this ceremony went on. George Ristigian, who was the Master of Ceremonies for very many years, and gave so much to his Armenian community here, to his church, and to his country. And we're happy to have George here by surprise. George has moved to Florida, and unfortunately he hasn't brought the Florida weather here with him. And lastly, last year we were proud to have Julie Kashtan as our Master of Ceremonies, and we lost her shortly after she did that. But she was truly the most prominent Armenian American leader in the state's history. And let's remember Julie. There have been some mention of 2015, and the Genocide Committee has been talking for a while about what we're going to do for the 100th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide. So I want to take this opportunity to engage all of you. We need your talents, we need your time, and we'll most likely need your money too, as we
endeavor to do something special for the 100th year, be it a monument to the martyrs of the genocide and to keep the memory of the genocide alive, but also other types of programs, lectures and concerts and those types of things, and also work with other Armenian communities across the country and see what they're planning on doing around the genocide. So we really need you to step up to the plate, especially more this year, and support this. It's a very important milestone, and hopefully we can achieve Turkish recognition of the genocide and never have to have commemoration ceremonies again, but more celebrations, and we can be at peace. Lastly, I'd like to introduce committee members. They're in your program, but I would like to stand as I named them. Father Kharpert Bashishian, Father Lansak Albanian, Father Gomez Sarabia, Father Gabriel Mauritian, State Representative Christopher Wright, myself, Judge Evelyn Luxian Daly, Greg Morrisinian, Julia Shikian, who is ailing, and let's keep Julie in our thoughts and prayers. She could not be here with us today. Jack Corian, Guy Simonian, Harry Mazadurian, Professor Armin Marsupian, Richard Arzumanian, Mara Magarian, who's a young woman who started helping us out last year, I believe, and was not the one to forward with us, and a new member, Radmila. Where's Radmila? Radmila Kazina, sorry. And our honorary Armenian for many years, Sira Zelaya, who helps, and Mark Hartunian, who's done videography of this for many, many years. Hello, Mark. We give them all a hand. Now, when I left the legislature a few years ago, I knew this ceremony was in good hands because we had an Armenian American legislator left to carry the torch, and he's done a wonderful job. Now, all the things that happen here, setting up the streets, setting up the tables, getting the room, those are all the responsibility of Representative Wright's office, and he's done a wonderful job. And I know it's a very difficult time of the year for him as a representative because the session is over in about 10 days, and they were here very late in the night last night. So it's a very difficult time of the year as a legislator, and I want to have him come up here and greet.
Whenever I look at the names of the committee members, I always look at them and then I see my name and I always think, one of these things is not like the others. Which one doesn't belong here? I'm the only one with a name that doesn't end in I. But as George used to say, between John, whose father is Armenian, and myself, whose mother was Armenian, together we made one whole Armenian. I'd like to recognize the esteemed president of Southern Connecticut State University, Mary Papazian. I would like to welcome you all. I know John gives me credit for getting all things organized, but it's not me. None of this would be possible without my aide, Cyril Zelaya. He's really good. And again, I'm going to be brief. As we are here on the 99th anniversary of the commemoration, we look forward, but we look back, and we look forward. We look forward to next year, and we look forward to what is it we can do to let the people know not only what happened to the Armenian people, but to let them know that yes, we are still here and we're still flourishing. And I was on WTIC this morning and I was talking about just that. I was talking about what the moderator asked me. Well, over what period of time did this happen? And I said, well, there's some debate, 9, 10 years. But in a real sense, it's still going on today. When the Turkish government, to this day, is still seizing ancient Armenian churches that are hundreds, if not 1,000 years old or more, and either destroying them or turning them into mosques. When we have people whose family's property was seized as part of the genocide, who have the deeds to their property, but still are not allowed back there, not allowed to claim their property even though they have a legal title to it. The genocide in a real sense is still going on. And we need to make sure that people know about that and that the world doesn't forget. We all know the story about Nazi Germany and when they were planning the final solution, when they're looking over the plans for Auschwitz, and when one of Hitler's aides said to him, "You just can't do this. You can't just kill all these people. What's the world going to think?" And how Hitler responded, "Who remembers the annihilation of the Armenians?" We do. We remember. And it's our job to make sure that the world remembers. And as John said, we have a big year coming up next year. We're thinking about things that we want to do. We would like to have a concert in commemoration. There are things that we'd like to do, but we're going to need help to do that. We're going to need people willing to stand up and to help us organize these things, to give us your time. And we are going to need money because while we can get the use of the building for free, we still need to pay for the people to be here, for our staff to be here to set up the AV equipment, to set up the tables downstairs. And those things don't come free. And like John said, we are going to need funds to do that. Fortunately, with us today, we have Guy Simonian, our treasurer. And I'm sure, I know everybody got a letter, but I'm sure if anybody would like to make a donation, Guy will be more than happy to accept that donation. And if somebody would like to offer their help, their time, to start planning our ceremonies for next year, you can come and talk to one of us and we'll be happy to take your name, because this is something that is so important for us. 100 years is a long time. There are so many people that I talk to that don't know our story, that don't know our history and what happened to us. And it is true that those who forget history are condemned to repeat it, and we see it every day. We saw it in Rwanda not that many years ago. We see it in so many countries around the world. We need to let them know that as the first people from the 20th century who went through this, we are not going to stand up for it. That enough is enough. It happened to us. We are not going to let it happen again. That's our job. And next year is a big year for doing that. We're going to need your help. And I thank you all for being here, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. I also want to recognize an old friend of mine, the president of Central Connecticut State University for many years, Dr. Richard Judd, who's here with us. Now, we're going to have a musical selection. And Anna Harutunian will join us up here to sing. Great.
Oh From the 19th and 20th centuries through photographic images. Project SAVE has assembled more than 40,000 photographic images and shared them with Armenians and non-Armenians alike. Many of us first came to know of this incredibly rich resource through Project SAVE's annual calendar, something I await with anticipation every year. I'd also say it's a good opportunity to contribute to Project SAVE, which needs our financial resources as well, tax deductible, by the way. But the images go far beyond the relatively few we see in the calendar and reflect and capture all facets of Armenian life and culture. Ruth is a remarkable woman. While she is a Bostonian by birth, she has ties to our state, which I hope she will share with you in a few minutes. Her background is fascinating, but I will not take away from her time by reading to you what is printed in your program, and I urge you to study that. In achieving her remarkable goals, she has demonstrated vision, creativity, and a persistence which won't stop. She is a person of wide interest, great sensitivity, and exceptional organizational skills. An old proverb tells us that a picture is worth 1,000 words. I believe that. Ruth's 40,000 images, in my judgment, translate into 40 million words, and at 250 words a page and 250 pages to a book, I think we can say that Ruth and Project SAVE have contributed the equivalent of more than 600 volumes of books to our Armenian heritage. Ruth's talk today is entitled "The Look at Ourselves, the Armenian Genocide and Cultural Preservation." You will find it enriching, enlightening, and thought-provoking. Following our commemoration this morning, we'll gather in the Hall of Flags for fellowship and refreshments. Ruth is eager to meet all of you here. Please stay. Introduce yourself to Ruth. Give your address, email, telephone number to her. She'd like to establish contact. Without further ado, I ask you to give without further ado, a very warm Connecticut welcome to our keynote speaker, Ruth Tomas.
I've looked forward to this day for so long, and I know that my mother, grandmother, and grandfather, well, I should put plural on that. Harry, thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled with the multi-generational audience here today. Young, middle-aged, us seniors, us more than senior. Thank you so much for coming out on a rainy day. I'm going to proceed with my presentation, and as I go through the photographs, I will be sharing with you my personal history and my reasons for doing Project Save, and how you also can be involved. I have my sister from New Jersey, Betsy Thomason, to thank for her laptop computer. Well, I decided to call this the Armenian Genocide and Cultural Preservation, and started with a look at ourselves, because for me, Project Save Armenian Photograph Archives has always been about looking inside our culture, ourselves as individuals, ourselves as communities, and until we know ourselves, we really don't know who we are as an individual, as a person, as a community, as a family. People have often said to me, well, I'm not interested in sharing photographs, but I don't live in the past. Well, I don't ask you to live in the past. I ask you to understand the past so that we can move forward into the future and have a bright future. I feel blessed with a bright future. And through Project Save, over the several decades, I have come to understand that we are who we are because of the generations who have preceded us. My initial question was, how did I wind up doing Project Save Archives? What was it that motivated me? What was it in my genes that made me think that it was an important thing to do? And I came to the conclusion that it's because the many generations that I have followed that gave me the resources to do it, and aren't I blessed to have those resources? And one of the blessings is a Connecticut connection. Now, this is the first time I have showed a non-Armenian photograph in my Project Save collection. This is my Connecticut Yankee grandfather's great-grandfather, I have to correct that, farm truck. A number of years ago, when I gave a lecture here, it was my second lecture in Hartford, I was introduced by a lovely gentleman who said, and who ever knew that there was an Armenian farmer in Wethersfield? I said, oh dear, I'm going to have to correct that one. He had forgotten that it wasn't my Armenian grandfather who was a farmer, it was my Connecticut Yankee mother's father who was a farmer in Wethersfield, Connecticut. So I always tell people I'm Armenian on my father's side and Connecticut Yankee and German on my mother's side. Hayek. Heiliges Hayev Imanis. Well, I'll say Amerigatsia, or air, actually. They're now both looking down in heaven. And this photograph, the original, my family, my brothers and sisters and I, decided that it should belong to the Wethersfield Historical Society. We have scans of it and copies. And where the farm was in Wethersfield is today where the Friendlies is in the Wethersfield Mall. And we've been there, we've had lunch there, we've spoken to the store manager and we said, would you like to have pictures of the farm in your restaurant? And they said, we'd love that. So I was hoping I could do that today, but another day, probably a couple of months, we are going to put this photograph along with a photograph of my mother and grandfather in the restaurant. Until I looked at this for this presentation, I thought this was my grandfather's truck. And then I looked at the wording on the truck, and thank goodness the detail on photographs. And I ask you all to, on your own photographs, look at the details. This says W.G. Griswold and son. W.G. Griswold was my great-grandfather, and son was my grandfather, William, or Bill as they called him, Goodrich Griswold. And this is a truck probably dated around 1916, taking a heavy load of celery. Their specialty was celery. Well, I'm going to go on to the Watertown connection. And actually, this is my staff at Project Save, Armenian Photograph Archives office in Watertown. You recognize me. I'm pointing at a photograph that Sophie, seated, was holding. Sophie is a new volunteer. At 87, she decided it was about time she came and volunteered. She is so fabulous. I want to encourage everyone, no matter what age, youngsters, people working, seniors, retired. We don't retire from life. Come and learn more about life by helping in your communities with whatever strikes your fancy. But in Watertown, we're thrilled that Sophie started volunteering. As she says, I wish I had done it sooner, but that's okay. Behind her in the gray sweater is John Kabajan. He's our office manager. He spends 30 hours a week volunteering to manage the office, and what a job he does. If you've ever visited our office, you would say, oh, what a clutter of papers. Well, if you visited in the last 2 or 3 years, you'll say, oh my goodness, it's all so well organized. That's because John's hands have put it in better shape, and I'm just thrilled to have John with us. Next to him is Suzanne Adams, who is our archivist. She's a graduate of Simmons College Library and Information Science program, and we get interns from Simmons. I'm also a graduate of Simmons, graduate program in communications management, and so we love Simmons, and Simmons just embodies the whole empowerment of doing what you do and doing it well. And then Arm Sarkeesian is at the left. He's our senior archival assistant. He is in his 80s also, and he's our expert translator. So we're always translating messages on the back sides of photographs. We translate sections in books that help us with topics for which we have photographs. So everybody is working hard to preserve our cultural memory. Now, what's the tie-in with genocide and cultural preservation? Well, this is an epigraph. An epigraph is a gem of wisdom. And this comes from this is a medieval mystic and theologian named Hugh of St. Victor. And he said, child, knowledge is a treasury, and your heart a strong box. And to me, that really says it all. The knowledge that we gain from looking at our photographs, hearing the stories that go with the photographs, that's our treasury. And it's all about here, as well as here, but with it in our hearts, we can understand that everybody is special in this world. Everybody has a heritage, a history that we should know, so that we carry that with us. So as the generations proceed, we carry on and continue what our parents and grandparents started. I know with myself, my father loved photography. His dream was to be the first person to have a photograph article in the National Geographic. And he took umpteen slides in then Soviet Armenia, hoping that would happen. That never happened, but I feel that I'm carrying on his work. Maybe not in the National Geographic and with contemporary photographs so much, but certainly with preserving our heritage and making it public. Just to give a quick review of where Armenia is located, many places throughout history Armenia has been located. The green outlined area at the top right is the present Republic of Armenia, the Second Republic, a former Soviet republic. The lands outlined in red are what we refer to as historic Armenia, that include northern Iran, or the Persian Empire, southern Russia, or the Russian Empire, and the eastern areas of the Ottoman Empire. And then the yellow area that borders the Mediterranean is the last kingdom of Armenia that ended in 1375. We don't think of ourselves as a Mediterranean people, but indeed we are, as seen by Cilician Armenia. It borders the Mediterranean. We're going to go to several places on the map today as I show you photographs. But I want to mention, in terms of the Armenian kingdoms throughout history, there were 150 Armenian kings, 149 of them married. Of those 149 queens of Armenia, 50 were not Armenian. Now, that's not mentioned too much. There was a Mongolian queen. There were Assyrian queens, Greek queens. They were queens of Armenia, although they were not Armenian queens. But nevertheless, they were not Armenian. We tend to forget the intermarriage aspect of our culture, and I believe it's a very important one. For me personally, it's important because through my mother's Connecticut Yankee side, I realized, I understood that there were volumes of genealogy that told the family history. Did Armenians have that? When I was in college looking to be a history major, there was no Armenian history really to study. But I thought, why study someone else's history? I don't even know my own history. And so that's why when I latched on to Project Save, I said, or the idea of saving photographs, I said, do it. Because the Griswolds didn't wait around for someone to do their genealogy for them. They did it themselves. And if we Armenians want our history recorded, we have to do it. So that's been my mission, and what a pleasure it's been. I visit people in their homes, they share their photographs, their stories, and with a photograph in hand, people tell incredible stories. I wouldn't even have had the questions on the tip of my tongue to ask in order to elicit their stories. So, since this is just a quick program today, I'll just visit one homeland place, which is Kharpert, in historic Armenia. This is a view of the upper regions of Kharpert. This appeared in a National Geographic magazine in 1910. And you will notice a building basically in the center with a big hole in the roof. This is the Surpago, or St. James Church. There was a fire in 1905, and they lost the dome. And so I have dated this photograph. That's where history comes in, to know that there was a fire in 1905. This is not 1895. This is between 1905, when the fire happened, and 1910, when the photograph appeared in the National Geographic. This is a family from Hartford. We don't know their names. It was given to us by a woman, Edna Bogosian, in Watertown. But over the years, because we document Armenian photographers, and Armenians have been the dominant native-born photographers throughout the Middle East since photography began, we have come to know the distinguishing characteristics of our photographers. And we know the backdrop. This backdrop is from the photographer Sassourian Frere in Hartford. So that's why we know this is a Hartford photograph. Plus our photo donor happened to be from Hartford, or her family was from Hartford. This photograph, you may not recognize it, but I bet some of you have seen the play Beasts on the Moon. I came to Project Save out of the theater, wanting to be a costume designer, but I gave that up to collect photographs. I mention that because, about 15 years after I was doing Project Save, a playwright called me, Richard Kalinowski, and he said, I'm writing a play, it's about genocide survivors. I'm making the main prop in the play a photograph. I'm looking for an Armenian photograph, and he gave me the specifics that he needed, only 2 generations. Usually the old family photographs are 3 generations. and he had to have a son that would be a certain age in 1915. And this is the photograph, the one and only photograph I could find of just 2 generations. They actually look kind of happy, which is unusual for many of our old country photographs. And I believe the mother and the wife is perhaps pregnant with another child. But that weeping willow in the backdrop is the key that it's a Kharpert photo. We visit people in their homes. This is Ardash's Kharpert. He lived in New York City when I knew him in the Armenian section up by the George Washington Bridge. And on his wall you will see a photograph, framed photograph, and I'm going to be showing that to you. This is a wonderful photograph taken in 1892. It's wonderful because it's, well, first of all, it's outdoors and it shows some of the architecture. This is in the upper sections of Hartford, like the previous photograph I showed you of Hartford. So it shows you some of the architectural detail, the balcony, the structure, it's wonderful, and it also shows so many people. It's a wedding photograph, and you'll notice that all the people are looking up. What are they looking up at? The photographer, he's on the roof. He's on the roof. Now, notice the balcony again. There's a little tyke peeking his head through the slats in the balcony. We're going to see him a little later. So the details showing the bride and groom and the Gunkahar, but my question early on in seeing this photograph, and I really didn't know too much about Armenian cultural heritage, which is the groom? The sad sack, or the one that looks a little happier? And it took me a long time. I know our clergy, our honored clergy, will know who the groom is. If you look at these fez, the fez being the hat without any brim, you will see a string with a nishan, an emblem on it. And if you look carefully under the bride's veil, you will also see her nishan. These are part of the king and queen ceremony in the wedding, the marriage ceremony. So the little detail on the fez has identified our groom. So we need to know our cultural history in order to understand what we're looking at. What does the genocide and cultural preservation have to do with each other? Well, because of the genocide, a lot of people didn't want to talk about the old country. Nothing about, because it was so painful to remember. And it's even painful for people who didn't experience the genocide to regurgitate all that trauma and angst. And so if we don't ask questions and look at it, people don't talk about it, they forget it. Very soon you have no cultural memory. And cultural memory is important to all of us. I give great credit to Alex Haley. When I first started Project SAVE in 1975, Alex Haley's roots was on television, serialized, and I said, this is astounding. He is doing black heritage, black history. How important for black people to say, I'm black and I'm proud. Why can't I say I'm Armenian and I'm proud? But if I don't know what it means to be Armenian, how can I be proud? It's really that basic. This has become a quintessential photograph of the genocide. Project SAVE exhibited this in 1983 when I was putting together a museum exhibit at the Museum of Art National Heritage in Lexington, Massachusetts. And I was determined to have a section on genocide. But I didn't have any genocide photographs because Armenians, the elders I was talking with, they didn't come to the U.S. with their satchel of photographs and genocide photographs. You know, it was very difficult then to find images. When I put the call out to the community, a man in New Jersey said, I have the perfect photograph for you. It has been credited anonymously for years, and there's so many stories of this. I'm not going to go into the stories today. I'm going to kind of give you a little incentive to get me to come back to Connecticut and tell you the full story. But this is the march of men. They're being taken to prison under armed Turkish guard. You You can see the line is manned. You can see men on the outside with their rifles, the Turkish guards. You might think there's a woman in the front of the line, but actually no. Men often wore the Arabic apparel called entari, which is a long gown. And they would wear usually often a Western-style coat over it. So these are men being taken to prison, and there's a whole story about that also. But I wanted to show you this, and only to say that now it is such a popular photograph. You will find it on the web, used constantly, and on the web, it is not credited to Project Save Armenian Photograph Archives. It is credited to, well, it's on Wikipedia, which you'll find it. It's credited to Wikipedia, and it's on newspapers take it and credit it to Wikimedia Common. You lose control, but in a way, it's good. The photograph is out there. It's been used on book covers of Peter Balakian's book. Memoirs of Boris Jafarian used it for his memoir. And still talking about Kharpert, but in a different place. We are now in Afyonkarahisar. This is in more central Turkey. This is our photo donor, Ardashos Hampar. We grew up in Kharpert. He went to Euphrates College, which was an American missionary school. He could speak Armenian, Turkish, and English. And when the First World War and the genocide happened, he thought to himself, how can I best serve my people? And he said, I think I should serve my people by enlisting in the British Army. Well, the Brits put him in a Scottish regiment called the Seaforth Highlanders. And here he is in his dress uniform. He's my hero. I've recently done some research on tartans, him in his kilt and his Balmoral bonnet. And I understand that the Seaforth Highlanders wore the Mackenzie tartan. And just to give thanks and honor to Harry Mazadurian's wife, who is not Armenian, but her mother's maiden name happened to be Mackenzie. So there are connections. We are all connected, whether we're Armenian or not. We all have so many connections, and really we only learn that by sitting down and talking with our elders. I encourage all you youngsters, at holiday time, get the box of photographs out yourself, and sit down, get your aunts and uncles, grandparents, grandmother, grandfather, to talk to you about who the people are in the photographs. 10 years down the road, we forget who are in the photographs. It happens that quick, the lapse of memory. His intelligence work, he gathered up all the Armenian street boys, the urchins, who were orphans. There was no room in the orphanages. The orphanages were full, and he would take them with him. And he went back and forth like this. He, many times, into Turkish-held areas with Armenian orphans. And he would take the orphans back with him to the British, and he would find homes for them and places of refuge for them. He said that was the most important work he did in his life. So that's why he's a special hero to me. So you'll see Afyonkarahisar there, highlighted in pink over there near Smyrna. And Kharpert you'll see on the left-hand side of the enclosed red area. So you can see how far he traveled back and forth to do his work. Armenian orphans. Body language, it tells so much. Our photo donor, Navasad Gorosian, couldn't remember the names of her dear orphan friends. She was in this orphanage also, although she is not in the photograph. But she said, that's what the genocide did to my memory. I couldn't remember that. I lost memory of it. And she actually was adopted when she came to this country. She doesn't know her real family name. So that's what genocide does to cultural memory. And that's why it's so important for us to at least collect what is still collectible by talking with people. She lived in Chelsea, Massachusetts in a third floor walk-up. She could no, as you see, she could no longer walk up the stairs. She had crippling arthritis. And yet every time I went to visit her, she insisted on serving me. In order to get her mail, she lowered a bucket 3 floors down the hallway, and her neighbors would put it in the bucket and she would hoist it up. Margaret was she was the first person. I lived in New York City at the time. That's where I began Project Save Archives. And she was the first person to actually send me original photographs. And she said, to keep. I want you to keep my originals. I'm a widow, I have no children, I have no one to pass them on to, and I know you will preserve them and remember me. And I've remembered Margaret ever since, and I said to myself, well, I can't not visit this woman. When I go back to Boston, I must visit Margaret. And that was the beginning of many, many visits with Margaret, because she parsed her photographs out to me piecemeal, a few at a time. It took me a while to figure that out, that this was for her social life, because she knew I would come and visit her, because I wanted to talk with her about the people in her photographs. And so collecting and documenting photographs, it serves our social needs as well as our cultural needs. It's very important. And now as a senior, I understand that even more. When we have the younger generation wanting to continue our work, that's so important. So I bless you all for having a multi-generational audience here. Our youth are involved, and it's so important. But it's also so important for us to convey the positive, the wonderful nature of our rich Armenian culture, and keep it on the positive side, because genocide it tears us apart, unfortunately, in so many ways. Well, Margaret one night, as I had packed my bags, my tape recorder was in the bag, my paperwork was in the bag, and she's there at the door, we're kissing goodnight, and she has her hand in her apron pocket, and she says to me, a great teaser, she says, would you like to see one more photograph? Now, this was before Columbo was ever on television with his, oh, by the way, do you happen to? Well, Margaret, of course I want to see your photograph. And out of her pocket, she pulls this fabulous photograph. Postcard. It was just a little postcard. And I said, Margaret, you saved the best to last. I gotta come back in and you gotta talk to me about this photograph. This is incredible. I've never seen anything like it. And so we went back in. That was her way of getting to stay longer. This is a refugee camp in Aleppo. I have learned that the photographer was Vartan Darunian of the Darunian Frere photographers in Aleppo. I have no specific date, although I believe this is in the early 1920s, but these refugee camps went on for decades. I mean, I'm thinking back then, I was thinking, oh, a refugee camp, so they probably got out in a year or two and found this was the life for many of these people. But such industrious people in this photograph. The woman in the center was wearing her yasma and her shalvar, her baggy pants, or the shalvar, is spinning thread with her ilig being the weight that spins the thread at the bottom. The girls are doing needlework. The American missionaries, I learned, helped the Armenian women in the refugee camps sell their needlework. And they then sold it to an American audience who in the 1920s wore the Armenian lace on their beautiful dresses. But body language here is very important. A couple of the kids may be looking in the camera, but most of them are paying attention to their needlework. I think they have to have post-traumatic stress syndrome, a term that nobody ever thought about. Nobody has talked about the stress, the post-trauma experiences of our people until we started thinking about psychotherapy after World War II and really understanding that the mind governs the body. And so this photograph has many levels of information on it. And I go, wherever I go, I collect photographs was in New Orleans in 2005 for a Society of American Archivists conference, and I had been told by an old-time photo donor that I should connect with her nephew, Victor Bedikian. My photo donor was Marie Bedikian, who lived in New Jersey. You gotta call Victor, because he has photographs, but he lives in New Orleans. I don't know if you ever get to New Orleans. Well, when I got to New Orleans, I called him, and so I said, well, I'm going to be at the hotel. I'm not sure what my schedule is, but you're certainly welcome to meet me at the hotel. So here we are in a hotel lobby, or a lounge, and he has brought all his photographs to share with me. Now, this was in August 2005, and 4 days later, the day after I left, Katrina hit. And Victor Bedikian was thrilled that I had his photographs saved from the water that flooded his basement. So I say that as a message to all of us. Get your photographs out of the basement, out of the attic, share them with us, please. Everyone's photographs are so important. They add to the cultural memory. Project Save is about social history, people history. It's not about the rich and the famous or sorry for the politicians, we have politicians in our archives also, but it's about everyday people. It's everyday people. That's who we are. With that, I will share with you one more photograph, and this is another Connecticut photograph here in this State House in 1997. And the names, several of the names were mentioned earlier. Anne, I know you know, Anne Isoyan. And then Yaroslave Pat's mom is here. Is that Margaret? Margaret. And next to her is Maisa Ohanesyan, and I think the woman with the cane, we're not sure. Well, if you will help me later with the names, I would so appreciate that. We like to have names on every person as much as possible. So I know you've been doing this commemoration for many years. I so thank you for inviting me and to share my message with you. Please share your photographs. I have to say, at finances too, this work continues because of our many donors of all kinds. So, alone, no one can save Armenian heritage. This is our message with our annual appeal this year, which some of you, if you're on our mailing list, will be receiving in the mail soon. But with your help, together we can, we have, and we will continue to preserve Project Save. You've seen the staff photograph before. These two other photographs are we wanted the contrast between, well, I'll just go back to alone. So we chose two photographs of people alone. A shoemaker in Egypt with his string of shoes to sell at a bazaar in Egypt. And then Haidanush Pendikian Severian, she actually lived in Bridgeport when she was newly married, but she's in Fresno in this photograph, hanging on the clothesline her roji, her string of walnuts dipped in grape syrup. It's a wonderful photograph. And then when we come to this page, it's people helping each other. These are photographs from an American missionary album. The top photograph is they're gleaning. The missionaries and the Armenians surviving Armenians are gleaning a grape vineyard. And the young orphans in the bottom photograph, they were 8 orphans among 500 in the same orphanage with one cook. So the orphans are helping the cook by peeling potatoes. So we are who we are because of the genocide and generation. Actually, that's an interesting slip of the tongue because genocide, gender, generations are all from the same root word. We are who we are because of the generations who have preceded us. Thank you very much.
It's a photo book of Wethersfield.
You can have most of what you say, so this is that.
And a Wethersfield plate. And there's one more thank you I wanted to make. I did not want to overlook. As you were walking in, the gentleman who was handing you the programs is Jason Knight, who is one of our staff members from House Democrats, and I want to thank him for giving up his Saturday and coming to the class. And I believe we have another musical selection from our children here today.
That concludes the ceremony. The Requiem service will be starting in a minute or two. And after that, you're all welcome downstairs in the Hall of Flags for coffee and refreshments. Thank you very much, everyone.
ոչ հազն ծորեն ու անգյալ հեր գիր մերանիցին կնյայն գա, աբատ մերանիցի հազում արդյուն սարներ, որ սիրես անցն յուր արցագեզնա, և որ ադյալ զանցն յուր աշխարիս հայցմին, իգյանսն հավիլենական սպայստեզնա, եթե ոգզիս պաշտեստեզ, իմ եգեստե, և ուր եսնեմ, ատ և պաշտոնյան իմ եվիցի, եթե ոգզիս պաշտեստե, բատվեստեզնա հայրնի,
Χριστός որդի Աստուծո անոխագալ եւ բարեգութ Քծա քո արաշական սիրով դիհոքի սանկության ծառայեցկոց Namanavad Hoki Sankutsia, Meguges Million, Zohbaz, Angakin Hairun, Itzeres Parparostuke. Ishavu Metikalistiana Karjango, Arar Janigo, Mutian, Kabutian, Yevtobutian Melats. Tasaboria, Baitaratsun, Surpusquachogo, Yantasun, Zitu Esde, Yabararicha Menetsun, Tadaborian Tanya, Semneros, Yevkesvaile, Parkish, Harutunian Badi, Ajim Yevnish, Yabavidian, Savidenisamen, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. O Christ, Son of God, forbearing and compassionate, through your love as Creator, have mercy upon the souls of your departed servants, and especially upon the souls of your servants, 1.5 million Armenian martyrs who fell victim to the first genocide of the 20th century, which was perpetrated by the Ottoman Turks between 1950 to 1923. Be mindful of them, O Lord, on the great day of the coming of your kingdom. Make them worthy of your mercy and remission of forgiveness of their sins. Glorify and number them among the saints of your right hand. For you are Lord and Creator of all, Judge of the living and the dead, and to you is befitting dominion and glory forever and ever. Amen.
Ornia vermer Iisus Christos, amen. Amen. Orenices, subius iamco, dies arcaicumco, dies indamco, orvesa vinci requic, sasnem anamazor, urnes Christos, ieptomes partisven, orvesia mecum menos partamanas, iemidanes nesivor fortune, albrigas nesicare.
Zikoy Harutunian Zortunian Kharpert Kardintamen, Orniak Elchratur Pokuin, Yertaik Harutian, if there Jesus Yeritin says, and Menesians Amen, you blessed by the Holy Spirit, depart in peace, and may our Lord Jesus be in your heart